how does teaching impact? Well, some of my students will get to a point where they will want to build something of their own. I saw the absolutely amazing effects of people coming together and working together as a community. What if the next level would be people creating their own little startups and then have a community of startups? And from there, I guess I was trying to create a blueprint that maybe they can follow and we can share lessons learned. When you help people break a barrier, improve their life, they also want to help you do something greater.
Welcome to the Control Alt GAB podcast, where we sit down with tech founders to break down how they scale, pivot, and grow. I'm your host, Gabrielle Walthers. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Control Alt GAB podcast. Today, we are joined by Iulian Chiriac, who is the founder of Mekanys Academy, which is really exciting. We're going to dive into his story with starting this company, look at what growth has looked like and meant for him, dive into the world of learning and consulting and all of that good stuff. Thank you, Iulian, for joining us today.
It's absolutely amazing to be here, and thank you for having me. So appreciate that, Gabrielle.
Of course. So to kick things off, we love to dive into the origin story from a founder perspective. What led you into this specific founder space? What on your end was the personal and professional convergence that really pushed you into this direction? And walk us through what the early days looked like for you. What led you here? How'd you get here?
Going back to the beginning, I was always a bit of a lone wolf. I think I mentioned this on a few meetings with some clients where I say that my first line of code that I wrote was at 7 years old on a computer my dad built. And that kind of stuck with me. And from that point on, I had a pretty interesting relationship with computers, being an introvert. And that helped me be more on the lone wolf side of things. I swear there's a connection to your question. So after many years of doing that, after still kind of optimizing businesses that I was part of with the help of computers and my passion for it, I ended up by accident in 2010 working with a few people that asked me, what do I do? And at that time, I was doing Salesforce CRM and business optimization with the help of that CRM. And when they asked me that, I don't know what kind of pushed me towards, well, let me show you. So what ended up was from that experience down the line for about 3 to 6 months, I actually started showing them more and more every week. We had regular sessions of me showing them the system and helping them on board. And to this day, I think the rationale behind why I did it is I was curious. I was learning by doing that. And then the second sort of accident, but a happy accident, was when my manager at the time, we were just having like a discussion and they were telling me, oh, it's so hard to find great people. And I just blurbed out, hey, I'm kind of training, not really training, but I'm helping some people know the system. Do you want to try them out? And that was literally the beginning of a lot of things that followed for the next 15 years, especially as a founder, because they were my responsibility at that time to work on some of the projects together. And then I figured I can help more people because it was something that had a higher barrier of entry. But once you get there, you improve your life professionally and financially and so on. And you did mention Mekanys Academy, which that's when it started. It wasn't officially that, but that's when it started. Hundreds of students later, what happened is a bunch of them came together and said, hey, we should form something as an umbrella company, now you would call it an implementation agency, and implement projects together since we know each other, since, we've kind of all learned together. And that's what we did. And that was the founding and how Mekanys was born in itself. So I think the academy came first as a passion project almost. And then from that passion project, founding Mekanys as an entity, as a business entity, came afterwards. And I think we were all learning along the way, which I mentioned a bit earlier. We were going through all of these phases of being community, being a bunch of friends, geeking out over project implementations. We weren't necessarily, P&L oriented or anything. We just wanted to do the best that we can out of this stuff. And as a founder, I learned a lot of things. Maybe a lot of people dream about starting something. And I don't think they realize what they're asking for. It can be very exciting and it is not easy. but it is not something that I would give back, no matter how hard it is. It is one of the most teachable experiences that I got. And with every moment you get to the next level, to the next bump in the road, to the next hard thing, it gets harder and harder. But when you look back 5-10 years, you realize that all those bumps that 10 years ago seemed extremely big are now something that, you can basically solve in 5 minutes. So that's what I call that progression of the founder. And there have been some really, really hard moments to go through. But yeah, that's kind of how it all came to be and the origin story of it all.
Definitely. And so correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to make sure I have this organizational structure correct. So the Mekanys Academy came first, really now is what powers that consultancy and delivery side as well. And so it grew from that education piece, and now you're able to operationalize that group of people and work on the consulting project delivery pieces. Is that correct? Flow wise, how
you got it.
Relate to one another? Okay, perfect. That's kind of what I figured. I wanted to make sure that was...
It does feed one into another, but that was not the initial plan. We were lucky. We stumbled upon something that worked really well back in 2010, 2012, where we started with just a group of people that wanted to learn. And then we got lucky again by getting projects. And then we kept training other people because it was word of mouth. It wasn't really anything on the net. It was just people knowing people, recommending people. And the more people came in, we would end up we did the projects, and then we would fund salaries because people, when they were trying to transition, there was this, which I guess is normal somewhat, but they were scared about switching careers. So when you talk to somebody in tourism or in, we have actually ex-military people, we have people that were administrators or in the pharma business, and they wanted to change something, and they were very curious about IT and cloud computing and passionate about it in some cases, but their livelihood depended on their current job. So what we did was fairly new for the region, at least, because we started doing this in Europe. We would pay them as they learned, as they interned. And that money came from the projects that we implemented with the first batch of students that basically started working. So it was a self-sustaining machine and kind of growing by doing that. And the people that we helped transition, they would also help us on the project, which in turn would create more funds to actually teach the next generation, and it would kind of go like that.
Yeah. I'm curious how just that unique setup that you've kind of stumbled into with your company, how has that impacted your ability to grow? I see a lot of benefit for having an education piece that really trains up and powers the projects you're able to complete for your clients. How that has looked as you've moved forward and progressed with the company. Is it nice to have that bank of talent and people that you're already connected to, you already know their skill sets? Walk us through how this unique setup has impacted your growth, whether that be positive or negative or challenging or successful.
I think it's both. And it's hard sometimes because, you're trying to train people, you're trying to do the best you can, and also to involve them in the projects.
Well, I would say more like, how have you seen that setup impact your ability to grow and scale your company, both on the academy side and on the consultancy side?
Okay, so it all started with the academy. That's what kickstarted it. I think it had a very positive impact just because when you try to do any type of project, especially when you're a young, basically startup or a very small company, you have very little chance of getting bigger projects where you have long-term sustainability. And you can only get those when you have a larger team or a more experienced team. In order to get that experienced team, you need to have that stability and that funding, which usually comes from those stable projects. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. Now, I think stumbling upon the training aspect of it, which came naturally by that time when we started doing projects, how did that help us was we actually had a lot of people that wanted to work with us. And we started during their internships, almost like they were working on real projects and they got real life experience and they ramped up really fast. So by doing that, we had a large pool of people as part of Mekanys that graduated, let's call it Mekanys Academy. And now we were able to use that experience and use that pool of talent to get a more stable and bigger base of projects, which in turn allowed us to reinvest for the cycle described before into funding people coming into the Mekanys Academy because of that whole switching from your current position safely into something that you have no idea about, that you're most probably very scared about, and that's normal. And we realized that, and that's why we actually said, we're going to pay for your internship. We're going to make sure that you feel safe. Just come try it. We were so certain about the ecosystem and the effects of it that we were absolutely okay with doing that. So all of it just worked out perfectly, basically.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like you mentioned that chicken and egg phenomena at the beginning, but then that cyclical nature of it ended up being very positive down the line once you were able to get that system in place so that it functioned. And so clearly it works really well having this, I don't want to say endless supply, but seemingly a good, healthy supply of folks to take on this project work and this delivery work. And so theoretically, we'll never have a staffing challenge in that regard or area, really, as long as, the academy continues to function as it does. I'm curious about the other pieces external to that academy development team, like other business development activities, your sales and any marketing activities, external pieces. What does the rest of your team look like external to the link to the academy there? Do you leverage partnerships? Do you still keep all of that internal? How does all of the other pieces of the business look with that unique academy link in there?
When you're asking about the different, let's call it other departments and other people that are involved as part of Mekanys, I mean, obviously we have sales. And it's actually a little bit strange to say that. The reason is we, yet again, were very lucky. For about 10 years, at least 10 years, we actually had no sales. We operated, and we were talking to mentors, we were talking to business advisors, and when we would lay out the model that we operate, they were all, how do you work again? Like, how do you get your business? So we were lucky from the perspective of it all started with that one manager. And again, it was a stroke of luck, because a lot of our projects came from there. And then we expanded to other partnerships. And we did B2B, right? So our partners would basically sell directly to the clients, and we would subcontract and we would work with them that way. So in a way, yes, I was kind of being the front end of the sales department by doing some work for them, because I was still doing projects myself for many, many years, even up to 2025 as well. I like to be very hands-on, and to be able to teach, you need that, even as a founder. But the last 3 years, we realized that there's been a lot of change. But the biggest one was the whole sales setup that we did. And obviously, as part of that, there was marketing, there was a little bit of R&D that we kind of worked and played around with. So all of these changes took place after 10 years of successful growth. And then we said, what would it take us to go to the next level? Stabilizing the sales pipeline, which is obvious to everyone, wasn't so obvious to us back 5 years even. And we did a lot of that. And we did a lot of events. Ended up actually, since we're in the Salesforce ecosystem, I did end up being a Dreamforce speaker in 2024, which is the biggest event for Salesforce. And we started going to a lot of these Salesforce events tracking back 3 years. And we started, even with team members in 2025, some of the students that I had, and now they're full-fledged team members working on absolutely amazing projects, they started speaking as well. So we have team members that are now going to events, being speakers. They're teaching others. How does teaching impact? Well, pretty much anything that you do. I tried to put together a bit of just for me to understand the framework of how my path was, and is that something that is repeatable? Now, that came from the idea of some of my students will get to a point where they will want to build something of their own or grow or move on. And I was thinking, well, is there a way to grow that? I saw the absolutely amazing effects of people coming together and working together as a community. What if the next level would be people creating their own sort of little startups and then have a community of startups? And from there, I was trying to map I guess I was trying to create a blueprint that I followed that maybe they can follow and be as successful, if not more, and then we can share lessons learned. And part of that framework was you do something great as a specialist, and then the next level is you grow as a specialist, but you also share with your ecosystem. And the next step after that is you find a few students or find someone to mentor and to help. And after you do that, I mean, they can go after that. You help them come into the ecosystem, work for other companies. And as you move to the next step where you're thinking about becoming an independent freelancer or contractor, the natural progression would be to create your own agency. And when you create your own agency, who do you think are going to be the people that will want to help you move forward? It's exactly 2 steps back, the people that you trained. And that's exactly what happened to me in a little bit of a very similar order. And I think when you help people become better and when you help them break a barrier, improve their life, they also want to help you do something greater. And that's the impact of helping others, teaching others. And also it helps you as a founder tremendously. Some of these lessons, there's probably no book that I could have read that could have taught me what I learned by doing what I did. So giving back, teaching others is absolutely amazing and important, not just to grow a business, but to grow for you as a person and as a founder.
Yeah. I think there's also some secondary, like almost accidental benefits there too, where I think that having such a critical pillar of your company be education based and support based in a way leads to like, a lot of trust. I'm sure you've probably seen this too from our client perspective. Have you had a lot of people come in really, really finding that element attractive? Because I think that as we see so many startups popping up at a rate that's absolutely ludicrous, a lot of people are searching for that value-based, partnership for a lot of their work. And I think having that pillar of education and like community support and network building, from my perspective, would go a long way with building that brand trust that is needed for a lot of those client acquisition activities. Is that something that you've seen more tangibly, or is that just a feeling that you've gotten throughout your time?
Oh, absolutely. Funny you should mention that. The last few years, as we kept acquiring more and more direct clients. And by the way, we like to refer to them as partners. We're not necessarily looking for clients because to us, it gives us the impression of we're coming, we're implementing, we're going. Whereas we're trying to find those long-term partnerships where we constantly try to improve the business flow. We're trying to improve the way that technology serves them. We're trying to be there for them, not to just come in, complete something and go. That does give some reassurance to our clients where we were kind of in firefighting mode after other implementations, something that we're proud of, where we would come in and it's all on fire and we fix it and we hold their hand and we basically tell them we're here for you no matter what. And on some of the projects, they were not as lucrative. But in our eyes, they were because we're still talking to those businesses. They still need our help here and there. And to us, that speaks more volume than the bottom line, the cash flow at the end of the day. That being said, on the training aspect in those last, let's say, 2 or 3 years where we started working more and more with direct clients, I was surprised when clients would come in and they would basically ask, okay, so you do the implementation, great, it works great, but can you also recommend someone who can do some training for us? And we look at them as like, well, it's included. What do you mean? We do train the trainer, we train your staff, we make sure that if you want to hire in-house or if you have in-house that they're fully aware of the system, we make sure that they, we actually help them upskill if needed so that in essence, we become obsolete and you don't need us. But by doing all of this, most clients do want to stick with us for certain reasons. Now, this request to us is it's like it should be always there. And I find it that a lot of clients don't find it with a lot of other partners. And to them, it seems to be almost a side delivery. And I think because we started as training first, we were always training first. So to us, it's part of our DNA.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's really quite a unique approach that you have, having that education be infused really throughout all of the areas of the business. And starting as an academy first will naturally have that effect without really putting too much intentionality behind it, because that's the foundation on which the rest of the company was built. I've talked to many founders through the show, and the priority of education is on the rise from a founder perspective with regard to like business growth and stuff like that. But I think what lacks is that continuation and commitment, and having it be so foundational to really all of the operations of the company long term. You're successfully executing what a lot of people are talking about without really understanding how to roll it out in a way that will work. And so my next question is kind of surrounding the two funnels that you'll have. And this is how I'm visualizing it right now. And so you let me know if I'm wrong. So you have your academy funnel where you ideally need to have students coming in, some interest so that folks can go through the academy, go through the training so that they're able to be useful for you in the rolling out of project and the actual operation side of things. And then your other funnel being the partnerships and clients that come in and building those relationships and having good MRR with long-term partnerships and stuff like that. And so how does the strategy for keeping both funnels filled consistently look for you? I imagine the strategy would have to be different when you're bringing in paying customers versus students. Walk us through how that balancing act has looked for you. And again, let me know if that's simply not how you've organized it at all. That's good to know.
I'll add one more. You've touched a few very interesting points, and I will add one more on top of that. The way that, I mean, yes, they're not fundamentally different. They complement each other very well, right? So one is we're investing a lot of energy and time into the academy because we love it, first of all, and that works well. And then we have those people and resources that want to work with us on the project that we want to deliver. And that's great, right? And then you have the actual projects that you deliver, and how do we make sure that the sales funnel for it works is because we have all those experiences and all those people and all those certifications that keep growing and adding up, right? What is the third thing? Let's call it the funnel. And it also ties into the academy is, for example, LinkedIn. So social or personal branding, but not personal branding of necessarily just the founder, which is what I started as well. It seems like I like to do that. I started some experiments for me, and then I always disseminate it to the team as much as possible. It started with Mekanys Academy. That's actually how that began. And now, even with all this talk about AI and how architects or developers or certain roles might go away in the next 5-10 years, it got me thinking about my role as well. Not necessarily just as a founder, but as a technical architect. And I was always curious about personal brand. Nobody can replace that. It's good or bad. It is you and it is your brand, right? So in the last probably I've been playing around with it for years, but I took it way more serious in actually 2025. Started a bit of a blog in 2021, almost finished a book in 2024 that I still need to finalize and publish. But these are all tools for personal brand building. And when you talk about a funnel, let's say sales, right? There's one thing to have sales channels, however you're doing it. But I think as a founder, building that personal brand, let's say on LinkedIn, and just helping other people with use cases, with how would you fix things, with, having those stories about tips and tricks and what you learned and how you can help them improve without gatekeeping, right? No, just tell them how to fix it. People will naturally be drawn to you and will want to seek some more help from you. And I've given that help. As I said, I've started in 2025. And from there, we've had, from very little interactions, by the way, we've actually had some of the companies that we work with today came from that channel. Now, why do I say that ties into Mekanys Academy? Is because right now, if you try to build a company brand, it is way more complicated. Nobody really pays attention to it. They see it as fake, or whichever description you want to use. People connect to people and people connect to me. Now, what I've done is I've also recommended to architects and developers and people on the Mekanys team, even though it's counterintuitive to some people, they think like, why are you teaching people on your team to become more and more independent? Well, those are the people I want to work with. I want them to be more independent, but at the same time, I feel so close with them that I think we're going to work great together, and I want them to be bigger and greater. And, so I help them with a personal brand as well. And during 2025, we had people who launched newsletters, who launched their personal brand on LinkedIn, who started their blog, and they're all talking about their passions. It could be marketing cloud, it could be sales or service or data analytics and aggregation, or even sales, whatever they're passionate about. By doing that, they become almost like brand ambassadors. So when you talk about getting people into Mekanys Academy, you can have those brand ambassadors help with that as well, and then word of mouth. When you talk about on the sales side, you're trying to use different channels for securing the sales pipeline. But when you have those personal brand and brand ambassadors do the same thing, it helps a lot more with that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we keep finding these pieces, whether we want to or not, that fit into the entire diagram. It's not like we're trying to build a new funnel for sales and it's just one side coming into Mekanys. We're actually finding a piece that works for Mekanys and for Mekanys Academy and for the people, and we're trying to future-proof it in a way so that no matter what happens, people within the organization are ready for what's coming next.
Yeah. That's very
So-
cool. I think it's so interesting having essentially the folks that are a part of the academy side, that come out of the academy side, being like mini brand ambassadors for both pillars of the company, just naturally. A good piece of redundancy just built in. I'm a very visual person. And now I think after your explanation, I'm picturing the pipeline as this like horseshoe where if anything comes in from either side, it really feeds both sides very well, which is brilliant, obviously. I think that makes your life a lot easier too, because I do this thing on the show where I try to remember sayings and then I say them and they're wrong. But I think this one's right. Many hands make light work. So the more folks that you have that really believe in the program, believe in the company, they're going to go out and infuse what you've been able to teach them into their own personal brand. And then now you have all of these little like sleeper agents almost just all over the place. And there's going to be so many touch points that you're not even going to notice because they're happening in these sub networks. I think that's just such a effective way of building anything. And I think that really shows the power of putting education first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you mentioned education first, right? And there's a lot of people that are not in Mekanys. I mean, they went through Mekanys Academy, they're working all over the world. And you said sleeper agents. And it's true, it's similar to that. I call that kind of networking, I guess, right? But you help people, they go into the world, they go on with their life, but people still remember, right? And whenever we have some, let's call it alumni discussions, or whenever they think about like, oh, I need some help with this, then they come back into the group and we discuss it and we talk about it. And then that actually led to a few clients and a few projects on its own. So the more you help people, it seems like you're kind of seeding a lot around you for something that might grow into, a potential partnership or something
Definitely.
in the future. And we don't do that because that's the end goal. We do it because we want to help people. We want to train. We want to educate. But the end result of that is amazing. I was in one of those alumni meetings. I just remembered that there was this phrase that I've been thinking about over the years a few times. And every time I think about it and I think I understand it, it changes the perception of what it means. And that phrase is, in order to get, you need to learn to give. And I thought I got it in 2008. But I was a lonely wolf back then. And it's like, okay, well, I don't know, but let me try this. And then I stumbled upon training people. And a few years later, I saw it completely different. I saw the results, that the feelings that I'm getting from helping these people, from training them, from changing their life trajectory. And it felt amazing. It was nothing about financials. But then the whole financial aspect came into play. And then in 2016 and 18, it shifted yet again when you saw Mekanys grow way more. And then the more we introduced, because we became very diversified, and I find that amazing. And things like this we didn't plan for. We had people that came from nonprofits. They worked for nonprofits and they came to us and wanted to be in IT for one reason or another. And then after going through the training program, what they said is like, hey, Salesforce has a nonprofit program or cloud. Can we do something with that? And we support a lot of these initiatives, whether you want to be more eco-friendly, whether you're interested in more diversity in nonprofits. And we ended up building, without knowing, a nonprofit arm. And that's how we build a lot of things that are branching out from the main Mekanys core. And I think we are able to do that because we're open, we're a community, and we're education first. So that, like you said, there's so many benefits to this that I'm so excited and I can't even wait to see what's going to be the next one that we discover that we did sometimes by accident that
Yeah.
came out of this mindset, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that piece up because my next question with our last few minutes here is really tailored to the future. So this is an interesting question because so much of what has led to a lot of the success of your company is that it's all based in that foundational pillar of education and community first orientation. Having that intentional setup leads to a lot of these successes. But when you look to the future, how does the nature of how you've had success so far, like how are you able to project and like plan for the future and have your eyes on that next growth goal? Walk us through kind of what your future outlook looks like and what is the biggest thing that you're working towards.
Oh boy, we need a few more hours for that.
A big one. Yeah.
Yes,
Give
true.
us the Spark Notes version.
I will definitely try to do that. So what is the future? I think to understand the open doors and the opportunities, I believe it's called luck of motion. So when you start, when you're, I mean, yes, you got to be focused, but at the same time, you got to make sure that you have a little bit of time, even as a founder or anyone really within the community and the company, to have other activities. And what I mean by that is when you do a lot more things that are not just pertaining to your business, even though you really, really, really want to do that, you have this lack of motion where you meet a lot of new people. And by genuinely being interested in them and in what they're doing, even though somebody's a winemaker or somebody is into rock climbing, and well, that has nothing to do with IT and activities that I do, but you openly talk to them and you never know where these things lead to. And over the years, I think this whole curiosity led to a lot of networking. And that networking in itself, the lack of motion, is you get to see a lot more opportunities and you learn to identify those opportunities. So which open door do you take and can you open doors? And most of the time you can. You just got to be a little bit more strategic maybe. It just gives it a little bit more of an organized sense. But I think lack of motion is more like do your other things as well. Don't be down in the weeds in what you're doing, even though no matter what the situation, because that's going to give you an effect that you can't even expect, just like education and training. Now, the go-to-market. We've had some transitions over the years, including how do we create our go-to-market. Like I said, we were probably 10 years at least, we were super lucky to have some great partners. And then we said, let's create, we had pods, we had team leads, we migrated to some leadership members. We tried to implement EOS, which is the entrepreneurial operating system. We tried different versions of that. And that kept morphing over the years, including how do we have marketing? How do we have sales? How do we have our go-to-market strategies? Are we too broad? Are we not niched enough? And there's a lot of mistakes that we made and will probably make along the way. All this is to say that it's not easy, but it is amazing as a journey. And always talk to people within the ecosystem, within the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and outside, because the more you do that, the more your mistakes will make sense faster. Or maybe, if you're lucky, you will not make as many. I don't think people can learn from other people's mistakes. I know it sounds weird, but that's what I think. It's one of those, how do they call it? Unlearnable truths, I think. You got to make your own mistakes to really make it click in your head, unfortunately. But I think that clicking can happen a lot faster if you have those conversations with peers, if you see what they're doing and they want to help you and you want to help them. And this only can happen if you have this giving back attitude, if you have this collaborative attitude. And once you do, magical things can happen even within business, right?
I think that you yourself and your company are such a good example of what the growth power of being a value-based company that really prioritizes community education, building networks, connecting people, and having those themes infused through all of the elements of your business can really lead to amazing growth success. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, allowing us to learn from you, dive into your world and understand the power of education. Before I let you go, I do want you to let folks know where to find you, how to connect, and how to be a part of what you have going on.
All right. It's pretty straightforward since I am trying to help everyone be more aware and build their own personal brand. I'm taking my own pill and my own advice, and I'm going to say just shoot me a message and connect with me on LinkedIn, Iulian Chiriac, and you'll find me. It's somewhat specific, I suppose, of a name. And if you search for Mekanys as well, then you're going to find it on LinkedIn, and I'm on there. I mean, for the rest, just, shoot me a message, and I'm more than happy to talk about the academy itself, which we are trying to revamp and make more efficient this year as we're partnering with other companies to make events and to grow in that sense. Even about your personal brand, if that's something that is curious to you, that's my own personal passion for the last few years outside of tech. I'm sharing a lot on that, on how to grow, how to become, I call it not financially stable, but financially secure in this very volatile, AI-infused, ever-changing world. So personal brand, I find, is kind of a solution for that. So if you're ever interested, then feel free to reach out on LinkedIn as well. Any type of business optimizations for any type of technology that you're looking to enhance, implement, or just make sure that your business is running smoother, we are here to help you. So reach out. We'll be on a call fairly soon. Somebody ping me, and we'll jump on a call and we'll sort you out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Iulian, for joining us today. Again, thanks to the folks at home for tuning in. Be sure to follow Mekanys on LinkedIn. Take a peek at their website, learn about the academy, and reach out if you need their support with anything. And we will catch you guys next time. So thank you so much, Iulian, again.
Thank you so much, Gabrielle. Thanks for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Control Alt Gab podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one.